morning, Mark. Can you tell me about your recent accident?
Surf was about, I'd say, running at 6 to 8 speeds.
Right.
And then I caught a bunch of baits and had a really good surf. And then I started to catch one last buggy and I wanted to make it a big one. And so I waited for the biggest set that came through. And I caught my outside rail and fell and got sucked up the face of the wave and thrown over the falls and landed on my back and hit a coral, just felt like a coral head or a rock right on my lower back in the middle of my body, and immediately felt a shock, like an electric shock go through my body, and then I hit my head on a rock and sort of semi-lost consciousness. So I just kept telling myself to relax and not to panic. And eventually I surfaced and got a breath of air and grabbed my board and tried to get on the board. I thought my board was broken, but I put my hands down to feel how much I had left and discovered that the board wasn't broken. It was just that I couldn't quite feel the board with my legs because I had no sensation in my legs. And so I thought, well, I better get out of danger, and I ran my hands down my legs to make sure that my bones weren't broken, and everything felt fine, except I couldn't quite feel the legs very well, and they weren't really moving very well. So I ran my hand down the back of my spine and felt a large lump on my spine, and thought to myself, I should probably get help for this. And so I began paddling back to shore, and at the same time calling for help as loud as I could.
Mark?
There were some people who had, yes.
What time was it at that time?
6:30 when I had my accident.
Was it dark?
Yes, because
Was it dark?
The sun had gone down, and that goes down at about 6:30 at the moment. And I began paddling back and calling for help. So I continued to paddle, and for about another hour, I waited for the biggest waves to come through, and immediately as they went past me, I paddled as hard as I could to get in front of the next big set that came through, which fortunately for me, I was very lucky, and that worked, and the next set that came through broke quite far behind me, and the white water pushed me into the beach. I would try then to drag myself up the beach, but I couldn't do that because I couldn't move my legs properly, so I just lay on my surfboard and called for help. And about 10-15 minutes later, someone came walking down the beach, and they wanted to help me drag me up the beach, and I told them they should drag me on my surfboard, leave me on my surfboard, and drag my surfboard up the beach.
What does the word grit mean to you?
I guess it would mean having to hold on even when you're on. So it's sort of, even if you're in pain and if you are facing a really hard and challenging time, that you just manage to push aside your emotions and your feelings and do what you have to do in order to succeed in whatever goals that you're trying to do.
Alright.
That's what it means to me.
Do you think you have grit?
Trick question.
I think everyone has grit.
Got a plug for it.
I think a lot of people don't discover their grit until they really need to use it. That everyone eventually faces a time in their life where they will need to dig deep and find that grit. And a lot of people surprise themselves
That's a good answer.
at how much they have.
Was there any time you thought I'll just give up?
No, there was never a time that I considered giving up. There was never an option of that. I had some considerations on whether it was best to wait for help or whether it was best to do it myself. I did consider those two options, but either one was a calculated risk that I took in order to survive. I never really thought that I just couldn't do it. I always believed I could do it. I think that I have no regrets catching that wave. I have no regrets paddling in to Brewers Bay or surfing there. I only regret fluffing that bottom turn.
How badly injured were you, or are you now?
I was badly injured. I had 3 fractured vertebrae, a desiccated, fully desiccated spine, punctured lung from, I guess, one of the ribs going through my abdomen or the lung sac, and I had a laceration to the top of my head.
Well, were there any scary moments in the hospital, anything that kind of scared you, like the news or something?
When I saw that image of my broken back on an X-ray, I wasn't sure if I was ever going to be able to walk again.
Do you think you have more grit than other people?
It's very difficult to measure grit, I would think.
Well, some people would just give up.
I suppose some people might have given up, but some people don't realize they have, and then when it comes to the crunch, they sort of somehow find that inner strength to do it. I think that naturally I am a person who likes to challenge myself anyway. So I think that kind of helps when you of that kind of nature where you see things as a challenge and not as you're not a victim. It's just an obstacle that you need to push. And I think that mindset helps to have that. If you're not a victim and you see yourself as someone who can overcome a challenge and you're willing to just do it, that I think it makes a difference.
Well, thank you, Mark, for joining me today in this interview, and good luck.